Hi, welcome to Just Common Sense. My name's Brian Harrison. So, guys, guess what? I have taken about 2 months break, and the reason why I did that because everything was pretty much the same. You couldn't talk about much because there was nothing new. It was the same old, same old. It's been going on for a while. Well, things have changed. As you notice, the world's changing. The U.S. is changing, and not in a good way. So I would like to talk about this, what's happening tonight. We're going to talk about this Pride Month. We're going to talk about all this. And let me tell you, I have Jose and I also have Jerry on the line tonight. They're going to jump in just a minute. But I really want to break what's going on out here. And, you know, if you guys see it, they're talking about it all the time. It's on the commercials. Let's talk about Budweiser. Let's talk about Bud Light. They actually put some new ads out because they're taking a hit on their with their beer. They're not selling any beer, I should say, hardly at all. Now, they put these advertisements out basically to say, "Hey, we made a mistake. We've got to go ahead and put new ads out." So they did some Clydesdale ads. Guess what? The other day, their Bud Light was in a Pride. It was in a float in a Pride parade. Let me get that out right. Sorry. So anyway, that's bad. So right there it tells you they don't care. They really don't. So guys, again, they're not doing the right thing. But I want to talk about what's going on in these other states and what's going on with the sick regime. I'm going to call them a regime up in D.C. right now because they are all about pride. They're about this whole thing. They're about these. I mean, you're seeing people out on these cities like New York. I mean, California. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Dancing on the streets, pretty much naked in front of children. We're also going to talk about children right now, what's going on out there where some of these states, governors, mayors, things like that, think that they should be able to get surgery at a very young age without the approval of their parents. Some of the parents actually believe this is a good thing, too. And if you believe that, you're sick. Because let me tell you something. As a child, when I was a child, and we all were there, I thought I was Superman one day. The next day, I thought I was the Invisible Man. I mean, there are many things that kids do. That's what they do. They play. They fantasize. They grow up into adults. And that's when they make their choices in life as an adult. Not a child or a parent doing this for him, or especially not a government trying to tell them that they can do this without their parents' consent. Because let me tell you something. If any of you mayors or governors or this clown up in office, our president, vice president, Giggles, she's useless, any of them saying that's right, you are sick and you should not be sitting in that chair. Matter of fact, you probably should be in jail if you have that kind of mentality, because it puts you in a pedophile level. That's what I feel. So let me tell you, Jose was out of the country. He actually was in another country talking to people about the U.S., and we are a laughing stock right now in most of the world right now, especially with this regime or administration up there. We are a laughing stock. And they look at everything, what's going on in this country, and it makes us look weak. We used to be a beacon of light where everybody wanted to be here. Everybody thought the U.S. was the best place to be. Well, guess what? Not anymore because of this evil garbage going on the streets. Now, I'm going to clarify, we're not against gay people, but what we're against is it being pushed in our faces. We don't see heterosexuals dancing around half naked on the streets, dressing up in front of children, I mean, with their butts hanging out and everything else and other things. This is sick. Totally sick. And if you agree with this, you've got a problem and you better see a therapist, or you better go ahead and leave this country. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. You better go somewhere else, because people like that are not really welcome here. You see the numbers in the ratings right now with Biden and Harris and everybody. A lot of people are against this. So that's what's going on right now. Showing it to kids and all this is sick. Again, we're not against gay people, but again, pushing it in our face is a problem. All right, I want to talk to Jose. Jose, we're going to go in and talk about this. Go ahead and tell us what the other country was saying about us and what you heard. Go for it. I'm sorry.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Brian, for inviting me to the podcast.
Right.
Well, I just want to go ahead and share this experience that I had recently when my wife and I, with my son, we traveled to our native country, the Dominican Republic,
Right.
and everything started just right before we started boarding the airplane. We started hearing conversation about people leaving the states and the reason
Right.
why they were leaving the states. And then I approached to this couple, talking to another couple, the reason why, and they're saying that everything's out of control. Crime has gone up off the roof, and one of the reasons why they were saying that they moved here to the states is because crime in my native country, the Dominican Republic, it was high. Especially when I moved back to the States back in 2017, 18, it was pretty bad down there. Now,
Right.
here it's even worse per capita than the Santo Domingo, right? So that it is getting awful. And as well, all about this pride thing. And people don't understand that we Latinos, we are very conservative and we are Christians, right? That's the main religion that we have. And we don't go with this pride transgender thing. It's nothing wrong to be gay. You can be gay. I have gay friends that actually they are against
Yeah.
the
I
transgender
I do too.
ideas,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
So nothing wrong with that, right?
Right.
But you don't see straight people or either gay people that they're against the transgender community dancing half naked or totally naked in front of children. And that it is supported and promoted by our government, right? So, and I took the opportunity to talk to many people back home, and we're laughing stock. What is happening here in the States is, is, is beyond belief, and it's biblical. The Bible says that this will happen, and we are living in the end of times, right? And that's something that we have to recognize. And some of you guys are Christians that we are going through that difficult phase in our lives.
Right.
And I was able to go ahead and make the contrast though. And
Right.
here in the states, it feels very dense. Uh, it feels like we are living in times that you cannot say and go against the narrative because you can even lose your children. And as well, I heard a new bill that's passing in California that if your children, minor, decide to change he or her gender, it is not your right to go ahead and go against that and go to therapy. The state has the right to take your children away, right?
Okay.
Um, it is just crazy, crazy, crazy. And not only that, human trafficking has gone off the roof as well.
Right.
What a coincidence that the border is open and that is happening. Don't you guys find that a little odd? And it is it's so crazy, guys, that my wife and I we have decided to go back and leave the states.
Right.
I love this country. I feel an American, but I had the responsibility to raise a child in a healthy environment.
Right.
That's my job as a parent,
Sure.
and I can't continue doing that.
No, and it's your choice to raise your child in a proper, decent way and let them make their own decisions as they grow older in life. And if they make decisions that you may not agree with, as long as it's something that's not crazy like murder, things like that, I understand.
Exactly.
And again, you're going to say, I love you, I support you. I may not agree with it. And that is something that a good parent does. They don't turn their
That's
back
something
on
a
their
good
child.
parent does when their kid's older. When their kid's this age,
Right.
like Jose's talking about,
Yes.
a good parent sets guidelines, sets guardrails,
Right.
says, hey, this is what's right, this is what's wrong.
Wrong. Right.
And so allowing these kids, and to Jose's point about, California passing this legislation about if you don't get on board with what your kid wants to do, you could be taken in for child abuse or neglect or something like that is absolutely nuts. And something Jose and I were talking about on the side was, where does this stop? You know, I mean, it's like at some point, oh, so now your 8-year-old kid has decided they want it, you know, they're a boy and they want to be a girl now. So, oh, you have to identify them as a girl. So now your 8-year-old kid walks in and says, hey, I want to, you know, go ahead and drive the car, and you're not allowed to come with me. I'm going to give me your car keys. I'm going to take it out. At what point do we get to be parents again? You know, and fortunately, my kids are past that stage, but, you know, in the state of California, that's ridiculous. And frankly, people would have been arrested for doing the stuff that they're making the law now back in just a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the problem that I see here with us here in the United States. We became way too free. What I mean way too free is that we have a generation now that was raised so free that they don't have boundaries. You need boundaries. Because what happens if you have a child and you don't put boundaries? The child wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and say, "Dad, I want to eat ice cream," right?
Right.
What is going to happen to the child? It will get sick. So what will happen to that children that when they grow up, they have to go to work and they have to face a workforce and they have a boss that they have to follow rules? What is going to happen to those adults that will come like that? There is no boundaries. No. We became way too free as a country, and the consequences of being too free and having so much freedom without having the consequence of that quote unquote freedom,
right?
That we became like a feather in the wing,
right? Well, and let me say something. We are a country that we're under freedom. However, with morals and respect, and that's what they've lost. They've lost that, and they've lost God. And they've taken God. They're trying to get God out of schools, just like the Pledge of Allegiance. They're trying to get all that out of schools. You know, we saw this recently, and let's talk about the regime up there in the White House. Let's talk about what went on. They had a pride parade up there, right up there in the White House. And, you know, I'm going to say it. First of all, that's not his house. That's our house. And I didn't put him there, but people put him there. But that's not a discussion I want to talk about tonight because there's a lot of agreements, disagreements, things like that. I don't think he belongs there. But anyway, where was the gay pride flag and where was the American flag? We all saw it. Where was the American flag?
It was right in the middle. The place of honor.
The American flag was where?
It was in the middle between two. Well, the American flag was off to the side.
Right.
And the gay pride flag was in the middle.
Where it's not supposed to be.
In the position of what is reserved for the position of honor when you're displaying flags.
Correct. And that is, but it's for the American flag to be there. Am I right on this,
Correct.
Jerry? Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to run the number one color guard on Camp Lejeune. So,
yes.
Even though I drank the water, and you know, I mean, so you know, I'm pretty well versed on flag etiquette, and there was somebody in one of my veteran groups that contacted the White House about that to express their displeasure, and the answer they got back was, well, there was a flag flying on the roof of the White House, so actually the American flag was higher than. That's a bunch of nonsense. There's a flag on the roof of the White House every day, and it's like that's just. There's one up there every day. To put the gay pride flag in between two American flags in the position of honor, you don't even do that with a visiting dignitary's flag. If the Prime Minister of India comes, we don't put his flag in the middle.
Nope.
It goes to the side of our flag.
Correct. And that's the only flags that should be up there, not this flag.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yes, and only one flag should be the flag of honor in this country as far as it should be the American flag. It should not be, obviously, that. It should not be the BLM flag. There's many flags I can go into. It shouldn't be.
Could you imagine if Jimmy Carter or Lyndon Johnson had flown a Confederate flag off the White House?
Oh.
I mean, not even in the position of honor, just anywhere.
Good point. That's a valid point, Jerry. Good one. That was a very good one. And, you know, a lot of liberals just heard that and they're going, oh, my God, that's a whole different thing. You know what? No, it's actually not nowadays. Because when you're displaying the hatred that comes from this flag, And I'm not saying we're not talking about gays. We're talking about when they push this flag in our face, when the hatred comes out. And we're seeing a lot of hatred from gays, or from these, not gays, but from these people in these parades. And some of these people in these parades, I don't know, they're sick individuals hanging out there with pretty much naked. And let's talk about what happened. So, Jerry, you got the picture. Jose got the picture. I sent it was on the news. Well, guess what? On the grounds that day, there was a couple individuals that were running around topless. There was a male with breasts. There was a female without a breast looking like a man with stitches. It was just nasty. That is disrespectful. Very disrespectful. And you know what they said? They said, well, they're just not going to invite them anymore. First of all, that should have never taken place. If that was taking place, why didn't they get rid of those guys and kick them right out of there? First of all.
Well, Brian, let's think about something else.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Right now,
yeah.
Okay, if you look at state laws, there is not one state in the United States that does not have a minimum age to enter into a stripper bar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can't go in unless, and I think in some states it's 18, depending on whether or not they sell alcohol, stuff like that, or or what level of undress the women go to. But anyways, there's a minimum age limit to go into one of those establishments, right? But then we're going to let these people walk around like that on the street in front of kids. So it's illegal. You could be arrested for going in underage, okay? And you could be arrested for letting somebody in underage, but we're going to allow it to happen out on the street in public. How crazy is that?
Yes, it's absolutely crazy. And I'm going to talk about it. Let's talk about Roy Cooper here right in North Carolina. And I'm going to talk about him. First of all, Roy, I hope you're listening to this because Mark Robinson, I am supporting you. I know Mark. I was just at one of Mark Robinson's events. As a matter of fact, you guys can go and look at it. It's on my profile there when my wife and I were right with him. But let me tell you something. Mark says it every day, talks about it a lot, talks about God. He talks about all this mess going on. Yet Roy Cooper is sponsoring all this. He's out there while this pride parade was going on the street out there, and he's supporting this. It's, if you had it straight, Cooper, you'd be saying, yes, I have no problem with gays. I'm support them. That's fine. But to put this on the street in front of children, where children can see these people dancing and acting like a bunch of idiots, that is a problem. If heterosexuals were dancing out there with their clothes halfway off, they would be arrested. The only reason...
Well, let's get it straight. Some of these parades, they weren't halfway off. They were all the way naked.
Well, yeah. And New York City was like that, by the way. And there's a video out there on it where the guy, you see him, a couple of them on their bikes with, completely naked. I don't want to get into the graphics of it because this is a show. But I do want to talk about this with Cooper and all because, literally, that should have been handled. He should have done it that way. But again, the reason why these people don't do this, a big part of it is they don't really care about these people and LGBTQ, whatever, the LGBTQ, whatever, alphabet you want to put it in. The problem is they're just trying to get more votes. That's all they care about. They care about staying in power. They care about votes. Now, Cooper's going to be out anyway because his term's up. However, Mark Robinson looks like he's probably going to get in there, guys, and really vote for him because I'm telling you, he's the man to listen to right now in North Carolina. You know what? We're also going to talk a little bit about Trump because there's a lot going on. And I'm going to step out of the boundary for a little bit. We're going to get back into this, but they don't want Trump running. And that's why all these different things are coming up on Trump right now. 71 allocations, is it? 71 things against him, I should say. Allocations. What the hell am I saying? 71 things against him. So, that being said, they want one to maybe stick or, which probably won't, but they want to keep him busy while this is going on. And, when you look at it, you've got other people running against Trump right now. And my opinion is they should be standing with Trump on this and supporting Trump instead of trying to mess up the Republican Party by everybody jumping in there right now. I mean, you got DeSantis, which I like DeSantis, but I think it was the wrong time for him to do this right now. That's my opinion. Yeah, what do you guys think about all this? And I'm going to back off the Trump thing in a minute, but I just wanted to get this out there. Indictments. I don't know why I was saying okay. Indictments is what I was trying to say. I don't know why I said out. All right. Anyway,
I agree with you, Brian. It wasn't the right time. I like DeSantis a lot. I think he has a big chance to be president in 2028. I believe so, but it wasn't the right time because I see a division on the Republican Party, and I see people fighting.
Yeah.
Oh, I think DeSantis should be, or Trump. It wasn't a wise move.
No.
It's all politics. I believe DeSantis and Trump, they're still friends.
Yeah, they don't talk.
Politics.
I mean, they know it's just this, but I think they respect each other in some ways. Sure, they do.
But I see as well a big chance that if for some reason they indict Trump and with all this allegation he's go to prison, I think our next president will be DeSantis. So and I see a greater chance for DeSantis to be our president than Trump actually.
Yeah.
Well, there's basically three reasons that people are in this race right now other than Trump. There's the ones that are there to just try and damage Trump and keep him from getting the nomination. That's your Chris Christie and some of these other guys. And then you've got the people like that guy Ramaswamy, who, by the way, I seem to like a great deal.
Yeah,
I like him a lot.
I do.
He's not the president yet, but I like him. But he's in it, in my opinion, for a cabinet post. He's like, hey, look, you know what? I'll run for president. I'll get my name known. I'll say good things about Trump, and then I'll wind up with some high level cabinet post. And then there's the people that just, I think, are just kind of hanging in there, thinking, well, if Trump and DeSantis and all these other guys hurt each other enough, maybe I can somehow slide in there and get the nomination, which is not based in reality at all. I mean, right now, the way that, this race, Mike Pence, come on, dude, you couldn't get elected dog catcher in the Republican Party nowadays after what happened on January 6th. So, this is a self-serving narcissism on Pence's part, in my opinion. But, and again, my opinion, but I agree with Jose, not DeSantis's time. I do think that 28 would have been the perfect time. And frankly, if DeSantis would have just played ball, in my opinion, I think he would have been a great vice presidential candidate to go with Trump. And then I think if Trump picks a strong enough VP candidate this time, that whoever that is winds up being the president in 28. And so DeSantis may have, basically worked himself out of the 2028 bid because, if Trump gets somebody really strong in there, then all of a sudden it's like, now, if you've got a strong VP, it's kind of hard to bring somebody in from the outside and say, hey, to your VP that just sat there with you for 4 years and had your back, hey, up yours, I'm going with this other person.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I said that too. Jose and I were talking about that a while back ago, and I said to him, yeah, it's just not his time, but I said, definitely give it to 28 and then we'll see. And, I think the only thing my only thing is if you had DeSantis as vice president, you're going to have two very strong-headed people in the White House, and they may not agree on everything, or they may work out perfectly. I'm not sure. It's just a theory I have, so I don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? A president and a vice president don't have to agree. I mean, that's just like a president and a vice president of a company. The vice president may disagree, but the president makes the decision. So,
absolutely. Yeah, but you'd rather have them getting along, trying to work together on everything. Now, that being said, let's go back to the pride stuff, all right? Because that's what this conversation is really about tonight, because there's a lot going on. So I do want to say this. When I was in Asheville, North Carolina, and there's a reason why I'm going, this is part of fentanyl, because I heard a story today. We're going to talk about that. It's part of fentanyl. It's part of a transgender. It's out there. I can't remember what state I just heard this, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But when I was in Asheville, I was sitting there and at a restaurant, Well, first of all, let me rephrase that. I walked into the restaurant, saw two homeless people outside. Very nice restaurant, by the way. Went in there. I've been in there many times. I was sitting in there, and I saw this guy take off his shirt outside. He actually was sticking a needle in his arm. He had a big knot on his arm. It was disgusting. And I talked to the manager in the restaurant. I said, so what's going on? They're saying Asheville is getting terrible. It's all over the place like this. By the way, Cooper, you're the governor of the state. Why aren't you handling that? But let's talk about it a little bit. They're saying this is going on all over Asheville. It's fentanyl. You know, guys, we've talked about the borders being open. That's where the fentanyl is being fed through. It really is. And this regime up there doesn't care anything about that. They don't want to talk about the border at all. And the border is a real nightmare. But the reason why I'm going into this little circle here, because I heard something today, and I wish I cannot remember. It was Idaho, maybe? I can't remember what. Anyway, so what's happening is there are homeless people. And they are actually, and it was on, actually, I think Waters was talking about tonight. They're homeless people. And what's happening is they all live in these little tent city. And some transgenders been coming in there. Guy dressed as a girl. And he has been raping homeless people. And also, apparently, they're talking about a drug, of fentanyl. It's a lethal dose. He's been sticking, they call it hot shots, they were calling it, where he goes in and jabs somebody real quick, and then they die. Well, guess what? Nobody's doing anything about it because it seems like this group is protected, the transgender group. And that's what they were talking about. So why isn't this being handled? Did you guys just hear about that or anything like that, or you just heard it from me? Because I just heard it tonight when I was driving home. I was listening to this.
I hadn't heard it in relation to any particular city, but I have heard of that happening in multiple places around the country over the last few years.
Right. And this goes back to sick individuals that are transgender, that are, not all of them, but they're doing this stuff. I mean, God knows, what do we see? Silence of the Lambs. Remember that? Remember the killer in that one? Who was the main killer at the end? Yeah, there you go. Dressed up as, same thing. Why did they have to portray that? Why did they use that? There are some sick people out there like that. And I'm not saying it's all transgender. I'm just saying that if you want to do this stuff, don't take it to the street. Don't go doing stuff like this. This has got to be stopped because they shouldn't have rights to do this in some of these states.
So somebody goes out on the street, they jab you with a needle of some sort and everything like that.
Right.
You know, in my personal opinion, not knowing what's in that needle, that could be a lethal attack. I turn around and pop this guy and put one in his head. And, you know, now I'm going to prison.
Right.
You know, because they say I overreacted. And it's like, really? I overreacted? You know, this guy just injected me with something that I have no idea what it is. And then what they'll say, and then if he lives, it'll be, you know, oh, well, he says he was just kidding. He was just joking around. There was no ill intent. Hey, I'm sorry. You know what? That's called assault with intent to cause great bodily harm.
Right.
And I mean, and so it's one of those things that you know, we've started allowing people to get away with things, and then they just turn around and say, oh, well, I was just kidding. I was just joking. I didn't really mean anything. And it's like, but that's only if you're a liberal. You know, if you're conservative, then you're going to prison.
Right. Well, you know, and hold on, let me say one more thing. I want to talk about one thing that did happen while I was listening to the show today. They did have a homeless, and these are homeless people getting attacked right now. And this one lady, she's homeless. She was explaining what happened to her. She was very tired one night. She went to bed in one of the tents. She was by herself in that tent. And apparently this individual we're talking about basically raped her. And she couldn't do anything about it. And nobody's going to do anything about it because they're not going to listen to the homeless people. A lot of these states, they're really not. Obviously, they're homeless for a reason because they don't really want to do anything about these, you know, these governors. They're out there like in California. Look at all the homeless people out there. He's useless. But
unfortunately, this has been going on for quite some time. Back when I was living in Miami, probably 35 years ago.
But it's gotten worse, Jerry.
I was outside a KFC, just had lunch.
Right.
This homeless lady came up to me and, you know, asked me to buy her lunch. I'm like, yeah, sure, no
Sure.
problem.
Yeah.
And so then I said, well, where are you going? And she told me where she was, and she was like 25 miles from where
Right.
her homeless camp was.
Right.
And so I said, I'll give you a ride. And she kind of gave me a funny look, and I was like, look, I'll give you a ride, no problem. And I was like, and so then when we got close to the area where her camp was, and I listened to her talk the whole way down there, and she told me her life story and
Okay.
everything like that. And she had a daughter that was living with her in this homeless camp that was, like a late teen, early adult. And she was so nervous that I was going to do something wrong that she wouldn't even let me drop her off at her camp. She made me drop her off somewhere like about a mile away. And I was like, and she didn't tell me that, but I could tell
Right.
because, she's like, well, just drop me here. Just drop me here. I got to protect
Right.
my daughter. I got to.
Yeah.
And so here's a woman that I just bought lunch for, drove her 25 miles, but I guarantee you that what you're talking about was happening to her and her
Right.
daughter and other people
Yeah.
in this camp. And that, like I said, that was like 35 years ago. And now,
Right.
it's probably even worse because,
Right.
Now, like I said, somebody, because back then you catch somebody that's a rapist, they're a rapist, they're going to prison.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, well, I'm mentally ill. Oh, I was on drugs. I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was doing,
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I'm Hunter Biden. My
Right.
daddy's president.
Right. The homeless population's gotten far worse because of the way things are being handled right now. Now, Jose, what's your thoughts on this? We're going to let you have the floor for a minute.
Well, the way I see this is that since mentally ill
Right.
people,
Correct.
they are now being accepted as something normal.
Right.
What is happening with the society is that we are building a generation of weak-minded people, right? They've been raised without boundaries. So what happens when you don't have any boundaries and you are raised as a person without any moral grounds or any ethical ideas of how a society should be, right?
Right.
So everything is broken apart from the inside out, meaning family,
Right.
right?
Sure.
So we have now 70 to 80% of the divorces coming from mother's side,
Right.
right? So now that child is being raised without a father figure,
Right.
and by statistics, 70% of those that are not raised by dad and a stable house environment, they are likely to become to crimes, right? So everything is being thought very, very well in the sense from the because this is a fight between evil and God.
Right.
This is between something demons and God,
Right. I
and
get
we
it.
have to understand where this is coming from. So, and everything is just making people to be very weak mentally speaking.
Right. And
Especially,
go ahead. Go ahead.
and let me finish my thought here, especially from the guy's perspective, they want weak men. Because if we have weak men, what is going to happen? We're not going to have a good family structure. We're not going to have a good society that can defend us. In the past, we have civil war. Who fought for that, right?
Right.
Of course, we're not saying that the female side doesn't have a very important value to contribute to society.
Yeah.
We know what happens in the 40s. Who built those airplanes, right? Who test flown those airplanes? They were females, right?
Mhm.
They went to work at the factory in the morning, and then the afternoon, evening, they went home to take care of the kids. And
Right.
we, the guys who went to fight. And what happened? We have created this weak mindset and all these shootings. Just to give you an idea,
Right.
Finland has the same per capita armed citizens than the United States.
Okay. Yeah.
And but what happened with the mass shooting here? Because a strong man that controls his emotions, right, and he
Right.
has a good moral and ethic values, won't go out there to shoot. That's nothing to do with a toxic masculinity.
Right.
That's a weak man, a weak person that might do something like that.
Right.
So
Well, just like a weak person that would take
Yeah.
advantage of a child which is where this whole
Yes.
trans,
Yes.
Exactly.
thing is targeted
Exactly.
is at children.
Right.
And it all ties together with a couple of things you guys have mentioned, the weak-minded person, the human trafficking, because you have to
Yeah.
human traffic. People won't do these things of their own volition and of their own will. They have to be forced into it. No, young girl or little boy wants to be made, a sex toy for dozens of men
Right,
per
right,
week
right.
or dozens of women
Right.
per week. And so, so this whole trans movement is tied into
It is.
the human trafficking,
Right.
which, by the way, I'm going to throw a
Right.
shameless plug out real quick because this coming week on July 4th, a week from today, on July 4th, the movie Sound of Freedom opens, and that is a movie about human trafficking. It's actually a true story.
Okay.
It is about a Customs and Border Patrol agent that rescued a boy from a human trafficker, and then his sister had been sold into human trafficking. And he asked the agent to help find his sister, and this wound up going international, and they wound
Wow.
up busting like 135 or 150 people or something like that. Last night I was watching an interview. It was kind of funny. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize it was him. He was the guy that the movie was about.
Wow.
And then he started talking about his story. I'm like, oh wow, that's him. And so next Tuesday on July 4th,
Yep.
Sound of Freedom. And I strongly urge anybody, if you're against human trafficking, I urge you to go see this and support the movie. If you're not against human trafficking, please never tell that to my face.
And leave this country.
And leave the country, please. We're welcoming you to leave. But something that I want to mention
I will
about
kick
human
you out of
trafficking.
this country with my own foot if you want.
Something I want to mention, though, guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Human trafficking is a bigger industry than the airline industry. And the last 2 years, funny enough, listen, what a coincidence. You can look to the statistics about this. Human trafficking in the last 2 years has grown big time, right?
Right.
And what is this happening? Because we have an open border more time, right? So we need to fight for our freedom. I think this issue is not only about our country here in the United States, but I believe this is global.
It is.
Are the one to bring this, right? And we have to start thinking in a global way, not only us, but of course, the United States is whatever happens here affect the entire globe, right? So we have to protect our freedom here, and the way that we can fight back, right? And if you have a young children, right? Educate your children to be either a very strong male, right? And then if you have a girl, understanding their role as a female, right?
Right.
And another thing that I want to mention, though, even though guys, I'm not Christian, but
Right.
this is a nation built under God,
Right.
with those principles, right?
Right.
If you see that in school we no longer reading the Bible,
Sure.
it is your responsibility as a parent
Right.
to read the Bible at home,
Right.
right? Do what
Right.
I did. I bought a children Bible,
Mhm.
right? And since my wife is Christian, my son, he is Christian as well.
Sure.
Every night he gotta read the Bible,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day,
yeah.
don't. Of course, we need to read the Bible at school, but
Mhm.
it is not your responsibility to raise a strong children. It is your responsibility. It's not the state, right?
Mhm.
So we can fight back of raising children the right way, of having children, if we can, because the three of us, it's a little too late for the three of us, right?
Right.
But that's the right way that we can fight back,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Let-
break the system down.
Right. Let me.
Well,
have,
we also need to
let-
stop doing the division thing. There's
Right.
so many people that they're only willing to hang out with and speak with and discuss things with
Right.
people that agree with everything that they agree with.
Right.
And so, for example, one of you guys mentioned earlier about how even a lot of the gay people out there don't
Right.
agree with all this gay pride stuff.
Yeah, of course they
And
don't.
I got to tell you something. I was watching an interview with, I follow him on Facebook, a guy named Brandon Straka, who's the founder of the movement called Walk Away, where he left the Democrat Party and he's trying to convince other people to just open their eyes and make their own decision. And he's against this grooming thing. He's against this, pride, with the children and everything like that. He's a gay man. As a matter of fact, he said something pretty funny not too long ago. He had a flat tire and he changed his own flat tire. And he said, look, he says, I'm not going to say that I'm up to the level of being a straight man, but I think I'm up to at least being a lesbian.
Yeah.
It was like, because he had changed his own tire for the first time. And he says, we need to get back to, hey, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, no matter what, let's be responsible people and let's set the proper example for people.
All right.
No, exactly. Exactly. Something I want to add. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Brian, but
go
something
ahead.
I want to add here pretty quick.
I don't want the floor.
I have I have three gay friends.
Okay.
None of them support this madness. None of them.
Of course not.
Right. So once again, this is not about against being
No.
gay, guys.
Not at all. Not at all.
So
So
if you want to know how Brandon
wanna-
got under people's skin, he was in D.C. on January 6th, did nothing, didn't actually go in the Capitol or anything like that.
right.
But he was one of the first people that was arrested and held without bail at first. I mean, he's out now and
Right.
everything like that. But, that should give you a great example of, how they're targeting people
Right.
because of their beliefs.
So, one thing I want to say a few things here. First of all, guys, you were talking about a movie. Great. For those of you who haven't seen a movie called Taken, that's a movie you should see, because when you watch that movie, you get to see what hell this girl gets put through and what could really happen. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're targeting. That movie is really a good movie, close to what goes on out there. Definitely a great movie to watch. A lot of you have seen that movie, but that's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is this. All right, I was talking to somebody last night that's in my family, and this individual, not going to mention this individual's name, but this individual, he has a child, and I respect him a lot. Now, he was talking about his child going to school, and he said, because of what's going on in school, he says, I don't know what to do, because I was talking to him about doing private school, things like that. And he's thinking about doing that. And I said, either that or even a Christian school. And I said, because a lot of people were either for or against Christian schools because they go back to the old things where they used to treat kids and all paddle them and all this stuff on the hands and everything else. No, they don't do that. But that's, I would rather have a child go to a Christian school if you can't afford a regular homeschool or anything else. But to at least do that versus going into a regular school right now, which is pushing all this stuff. And I wish I could show this. I showed this to my wife last night. Guys, you're going to be shocked with what I'm going to say next. And I won't get into the graphics of it because it's a show. However, this individual, this kid, had his phone. He was holding it up, showing what the teacher was showing on the wall, I guess on the screen up there. It was a video of how people have intercourse. Men on men, women on women, and it was also talking about heterosexuals, all of it. They were using these skeletons to show this, right?
That's criminal.
Right, but they were graphic. It wasn't just a skeleton. It was showing the actual parts of the skeleton, too. And it was disgusting to see this. When we went to school, it was about, I'll be honest, it was about learning. That's the first thing. We were all going to... Who's typing on a keyboard?
That's me.
Oh, I figured. So Jerry's typing on a keyboard. That's fine. I could hear it. Got a sense of hearing tonight. So anyway, we went there, and all we wanted to do was go have fun with our friends, go play football, go to all the different, all the different events that were going on, which was football, it was track, it was baseball, it was basketball. And we got to socialize with our friends, not doing this on computers where these predators can watch your children and see what's going on. I'm telling you, the world has changed, and it's gotten to be disgusting. Now, I've got some individuals, I'm not going to get into names, but they're not happy with me right now because I recently said something out there on one of the social media sites. And, what I said, because this individual was apparently in the streets of Raleigh, apparently hanging out with these people, dancing around with them. My concern was, I'm not upset with this individual doing that. My concern is, was this out on the street where children can see it? If it's in a place, it's private, or like a bar where no kids or should not be allowed to go into, then that's fine. That's their choice. I don't have a problem with that. It's when you take it on the street and force it in everybody's face, and you're starting to see this all across the globe right now, not just in the United States. It's global, and I have never seen anything like this in my entire life. We were talking about this earlier, three of us, and I mean, let's go back. I'm going to say one thing. When you look at Sodom and Gomorrah, guess what? If you guys don't know, go look at the Bible and see what happened. It was basically, Jerry, go ahead, and you could tell better, because it was a pillar of people turned into salt. Jerry, go ahead. Jerry knows this really well.
Go ahead. God basically sent angels down there to work with Lot to change the city. And then basically when the city was not willing to change, and I'm just, kind of giving the bird's eye view of this. Sure. When the city wasn't willing to change, God was, his angels were escorting Lot out of the city. And he told him, he says, you know what? He says, you cannot look back. Nobody can look back. You must just leave.
Right.
And Lot's wife actually turned around at the last second to see the city she was leaving. That's when she was turned into a pillar of salt. And It was a combination of things, of one, that, when something is bad, that, you do need to separate yourself from it. And, you can't, look back on it and again, I'm paraphrasing, but you can't look back on it. Right. So we need to move forward.
Right.
And so, and basically some of the things that our society is now not only accepting, but is almost holding up as the standard, are as bad as what was going on in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it was a horrible place.
Yeah, if not worse.
And,
that was,
go
ahead.
Yeah, but it's, so, you look now, it's, back then it was mostly, people just doing what they want to do. But now what we're doing is we're trying to normalize it. We're not just saying, hey, I'm going to do it because I want to. We're trying to normalize it. We're telling kids, like I watched that Agent last night, like I said, the one that the movie's about.
Right.
I watched him being interviewed, and he was talking about some of the organizations some of the names that we've forgotten about, like NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. And that's, that was specifically an organization for men to hook up with boys. And, so it's bad enough if a man wanted to do that, but to have a whole organization that's trying to facilitate that is unbelievable. So our society, because nowadays we know better. Back in those days, people weren't as educated as our average society is now. Sure. So people know better.
But that was just crazy. That was just one city. Now look at the world. Look at the whole U.S. doing this in a lot of these liberal cities. And it's gotten crazy. And some of the cities aren't even liberal. Some of them are conservative cities. There are some cities where a few of these things are going on at, but not any means, not even close to what
it happens a lot more than people realize.
Does.
You can cross over the border into Tijuana, and it's like you can go to Thailand, you can go down to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. There's all kinds of places all over the world where you can go and do this. And actually, there's lots here in the U.S.
Right. Well, it's gotten worse. New York was just, matter of fact, people were dancing naked on the streets of New York and riding bicycles and everything hanging. And we only talk about it. I can't do it because it's a show, but I'd love to get more graphic into it. I don't want to either. But people need to wake up and realize this is going on and quit turning their backs on this, and they need to do something about it. They really do need to stand up against this right now. And I'm telling you, this is something that Christians, it's something that normal individuals, normal Americans, I'm calling out not just normal Americans, I'm calling out anybody from other countries that agree with what we're talking about in this show. Stand up, vote these people out of office, go into these schools that believe this and kick these school board members out and get new ones in there. And let's start over. Let's clean swamp or clean slate. Let's start this whole thing over and get rid of it all. Get rid of them. You know, I really look at this and it just disgusts me. And that is really part of the reason why I haven't said anything in a few weeks, because I've been so frustrated over this, because I look back in the 80s when I grew up, 70s, 80s, in that area, mostly the 80s. And I look at how much fun we had. We didn't deal with a lot of this. It was out there, but not like it is now. We had a lot of morals, respect. I mean, there were a few things out there that weren't perfect, like any time, but this has gotten out of hand. And our leaders that are supposed to handle this are just as bad, if not worse.
No, they are the ones that support this. Can you imagine if they support this in public and they say all this in public? Can you imagine what they might be doing allegedly? This is what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Closed doors.
Exactly. You
well,
got
it's not even that. There's that point also, but a lot of this goes back to what Brian was talking about, just wanting votes. They're just like, hey, if I can pander to enough people,
right,
and and just tell them, hey, you know what, do what you want to do and everything like that, and then what they do is then they spin it to people that might not agree with that and say, oh, well, it's all about tolerance. You don't have to, participate, but it's all about tolerance. And, so, that's the kind of thing. And, Jose, you brought up the household without a, proper male role model a little while ago.
Right.
And a lot of that is by design, by the left.
Right.
And, to get votes. I mean, I remember when I was younger, my dad down the street from where he lived, there was a brand new apartment complex. And, we were, young teens at the time. We're like, wow, that place is really nice. My dad was like, yeah, that's for single parents. And I was like, really? But it wasn't for single parents only. It was for single mothers. And it was only for single mothers. And I'm talking, this is like a few 100-unit complex. It wasn't a small place. And it was for single mothers only. Anybody that wanted to get married had to move out. No boyfriends were allowed to live there. It was single mothers with their kids only. So basically what they were doing is they were telling people, hey, look at this nice apartment complex you've got. As long as you stay single and as long as you keep popping out kids, you can live here for free. And, and that's kind of where we've gone as a society. And now a lot of people are saying, wow, how did we get here? Well, that's how we got here. If you start driving down a highway and then you wind up at the other end of the highway, you can't say, how'd I get here? You know darn well how you got there. You drove the highway. And it's like, so when you set this, parameter and say, hey, we want you to stay single. Well, there's no role model in the home. Well, how are those kids going to grow up? It's like Jose said.
Yep. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, because the government incentivizes single mother. Not that mother. What happened is that role model from mom is needed. We need that, but we need both, right? And who is the head of the house? The father, right? And without that role model, what is happening? We have created a weak society.
Right.
No boundaries, no nothing, and that's where we are right now.
Right. No, and I agree with you on this, Jose, 100%. Now, I'm also going to hear one side of this because I know what's going to happen. You're going to have women out there going, but no, we're equal. We're not saying you're not equal. We're not getting into that. He's just talking about a role model as a father, talking to your wife, talking to your children, explaining what's going on and explaining why, you should be, avoiding things like this. And it is both parents equally. And that's what really Jose is getting into, and that's what we're talking about. So for those of you who say, oh, no, it's just about the father, you're just trying to push the father. No, it's about both parents. But
yeah, the equal and different are two different things. So
exactly.
And
that's
a man and a woman can be
yeah.
equals in a relationship, but different. So
Right.
you have a pencil, and one end is the point, the other end is the eraser. They're equally as powerful.
Right.
One makes the line, the other one erases the line. They have two different purposes. They're both important,
Very
and
important.
they're equal. But, and that's,
It's a good analogy.
kind of the thing, so it's like, so when you're talking about, yeah, you're right. Somebody's going to take this wrong.
I know, that's why
oh my
I said
gosh.
it.
And it's like, but,
Make sure they
I will tell
understand.
you, here in North Carolina, you go back about 30 some odd years ago, my brother got divorced. And so when he got divorced, his wife was 99% of the reason for the divorce. Won't get into all the particulars, but
always
she was
two sides.
99% of the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened is, at that time, my brother was, devastated. And, my stepdad said, "Hey, do you want your kids?" And my brother said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You tell me you'll fight for your kids. I'll pay for everything."
Right.
And so my brother's like, "Yeah, I want my kids." And my brother was one of the first people in the state of North Carolina to get his kids over the wife. Mm. And it's like, and so that's how slanted our system is, that even most of the attorneys were like, "Yeah, you'll never get the kids. You're the man. You'll never get the kids."
Right.
And it's like, and that's the thing. So are we equal? Well, in certain ways we are. But,
yeah. I got it. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Trying to think of anything else because we're almost running up on an hour here, guys. We got about 5 minutes.
Well, I just want to touch on one thing that you mentioned earlier. You talked about the Bud Light deal.
Oh, go ahead.
And when you talked about the Bud Light deal, Bud Light is down over 25% right now. I think it's 27% is the most recent numbers that they've had.
Yeah.
And a lot of the analysts are saying that is now a permanent reduction in their sales. And so, with them being down that much, and, I couldn't be happier. And I urge people to don't just make it Bud Light, make it any Anheuser-Busch, because that's the parent company is Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
But today it was announced that I don't know if it's every single one, but the majority of that marketing team has been fired finally. I can't believe it took them this long to do it, but the majority of that marketing team was fired. But, I do hear people bringing up like, well, Bud Light's still out there sponsoring parades, and
they are.
Well, but they've always done that though. But it was always an individual event here or an individual event there. They never rebranded their cans. They never put flags on. And now that's what's caused the problem, is now they're starting to do stuff. And by the way, one of you guys mentioned mental illness earlier.
Yeah.
That Dylan Mulvaney is mentally ill. He's not just pretending to be a woman. He's pretending to be a 13-year-old girl. Okay. Yep. And when you watch him, he runs around and jumps around and flits around and he is pretending to be a young girl. So, he's talking about, this is my celebration of 1 year as a woman. He's not even pretending to be a woman. And it's like, so they're putting a mentally ill guy out there and saying, this is who we want to, hitch our cart to. And it's like, and that's what's happening is American people finally say, okay, that's it. You're going to take this person, instead of giving him the help that he needs, you're going to go ahead and promote and kind of egg him on and say, hey, yeah, give us some more. And that's wrong. And the American people spoke with their wallets, and same thing with Target. So, I got to say, good on you, America.
Let me say one thing. Hold on, Jose. Let me say one thing, because Jerry's got me on something here I didn't want to forget about. First of all, I want to talk about Disney just a little bit. I saw recently, and I sent it to you guys, I believe. This is probably about 3 weeks ago. There was an individual working at Disney World as a fairy god princess, and it was a man dressed as a woman. And a fairy god princess, I'm used to seeing cartoons when you see princess, when you see male, female, not a guy dressed in a beard and all that, guiding your children around. That's a problem. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it's a problem, and I don't agree with that. That's one thing, and that's part of why Disney's losing so much money right now. They have lost a lot of money. Go woke, go broke. That's the thing. But I also want to make one thing. We talked about mental awareness here, what's going on. So the government is spending more money on stuff right now that makes no common sense at all, when they should be spending and trying to help these people and focus on these people, focus on fentanyl at the borders. But these people that have all these addiction problems that we're talking about, do something for them instead of just giving them needles. There's got to be a way of cutting this fentanyl down and trying to help these individuals that really want the help and need to get away from this stuff. Help them out. Spend the money there if we need to do so. There's going to be individuals out there that don't want help, and that's all on them. They're going to live a terrible life. They're going to die early and everything else because of this fentanyl. But there are people out there who are struggling with this because they are homeless and they're giving up on life. And some of these people actually had a good home. But with things like in California and all, and the craziness they're doing out there, people are losing money. That's why they're leaving those states And New York's having the same problem. Other big cities like that, they're losing their people because of this crap going on. All right, Jose, go ahead. Sorry. You there?
I just want to say a few things about Bud Light.
Yeah.
While we were talking here, I have a few beers. And guess what? They weren't Bud Light.
Okay.
and another thing that I want to mention though about this guy, I have a hard time learning his name. The Bud Light guy.
Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna learn that.
I don't remember it
For some
either.
reason I won't.
Good for you. You shouldn't.
I don't want to remember it. That's why I can't. Dylan is all I remember, but not the last name.
But this guy, pretending to be a 13-year-old girl.
And he is a guy.
He's a guy pretending to be a 13-year-old girl. He's subconsciously promoting pedophilia.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is just beyond evil, guys. And just to finalize my point for the night, this is good versus evil.
It is.
Right?
It is 100%.
This is not Republican versus Democrat. They
Well,
are not Democrats.
Yeah.
They are Marxists. They're not Democrats, right?
Not all of them. I'm going to say this. I'm going to have to interrupt you because there are a lot of Democrats that are against us too, Jose. Not all.
Yeah,
We'll say it
I
that
agree.
way.
I agree with that.
Okay. I don't want to put this.
Yeah, but
against
they're
people.
against it till they step into the voting
Right.
booth, and that's the problem.
That's the problem. And there are some that are. There are some that are actually talking about voting Republican. I actually spoke with somebody who's thinking about changing over to the Republican side recently because of all this stuff going on. And they made mistakes. And we're starting to see some of that happening. But again, not enough. But just want to keep that clarified there. That's, we don't want to. This is all about the pride stuff right now. And part of that is that with the way they vote. Jury's got that right. But let's focus on what's going on. Anyway, go on. Sorry. Jose, you there? Did I lose everybody?
I'm sorry. I was muted. My apologies. I know I'm done with my point here.
Okay.
So it was a great talk that we have guys tonight.
Yeah, and I know. And Jose does have a point against it's I wish it weren't Republican against Democrat in some ways. I just wish the people in this country would wake up and get some common sense. But unfortunately, a lot of this is coming from the Democrat side. And Jose's got a valid point there. And it does come back to when you vote and what's going on there. Jerry, your thoughts before we end this?
Yeah, there are some great people out there, like I said, like Brandon Straka, that is, trying to separate being gay and, being one of these out in your face activists that's trying to groom children. He is not for grooming children. And it's like, so, that's something that's very important that, we need to, keep our eyes out. And he was a Democrat for most of his life. And, he's in his 30s now. And, now he has sworn off the Democrat Party. And those are the people that we need to, support. And, we need to, also stop being silent, because too many people say,
Absolutely.
oh, well, you know what, I'll just let them do their own thing. And I don't want to, bother them and upset them and hurt their feelings or anything like that. Well, the thing is, when you're telling the truth, if it hurts somebody's feelings, that's their fault, and that's on them. That's not on you.
Exactly.
And, so that's one thing that we need to remember too, because we've gone in silence. This is a saying that I've used for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Silence is consent. If you're silent, then you're saying, okay, then yeah, I agree with you, because I'm not going to, dispute you on that.
Right.
And so, it's all tied together, this grooming and human trafficking and everything like that. And like I said, the movie's called Sound of Freedom. And I know Taken was about something that could happen.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom is about something that did happen. And so that's why, I got to promote that. And well, not only that, but Liam Neeson's a hypocrite anyways. He goes out and makes movies where he runs around shooting people, and then he's an anti-gun liberal.
Yeah, I know. It's the way a lot of them are. I mean, they're anti-gun liberals out there, and they're like, look at them all. And they're out there promoting guns by these movies, making their millions of dollars. But we're against it. Okay, well,
but it's all tied together. Like,
I know. If
a
you're
lot of
against
these
it, don't
topics
take,
you're talking about, the human trafficking, the fentanyl, the border, the grooming, the You know, I mean, and if we didn't have people grooming children, we wouldn't need human trafficking to bring those kids in. And, you know, and the fentanyl, a lot of it is used, you know, to drug these people so that they don't resist. And, you know, so it's just, I mean, it's a disgusting cycle.
It is.
You know, I mean, we need responsible people in D.C., which we do not have right now. And so we need responsible people in D.C. to stop this. And so, you know, hopefully we get that.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, but we'll see if things change over and get a little bit better. So, guys, here in North Carolina, definitely vote for Mark Robinson. I'm supporting him right now. Jerry knows him. Jerry's supporting him. Jose, I don't know what your thoughts on it. I haven't never talked to you about Mark Robinson. Do you know anything about it? Or him? Him?
I don't know him enough to go ahead and say anything either positive or negative about him.
Fair enough.
I will go ahead and do my research, but based on what I'm hearing from you guys, it's very likely that he will get my support too.
Yeah, and that's all I'm asking is everybody just to listen to everybody out there that's going to be running for governor here. He's got my vote already, and it sounds like he's going to win this thing, but we'll see. We've heard that before, and all of a sudden we woke up the next morning going, what? We won't get into the reasons why, because there are a lot of reasons we've all talked about many times out there. Yeah. So anyway, I do want to bring up something about this before we end the show. I do want to talk to everybody out there. Again, we're going to say we're not against gay people, but we're against this being pushed out on the streets for the children to see. If you're going to do things like this, keep it in a club where children aren't allowed, kids aren't allowed to see this stuff. And again, when it comes to children getting these all this surgery and stuff when they're young, no, that should be illegal. They can make those choices as they turn into adults, and that is their choice to do whatever they want at that point. Also, because of what we talked about with the nature of the show tonight, I do want to say, everybody be peaceful out there. Please do not go out there in any of these parades and start any violence or vice versa. You know, I know there's a lot of anger over this right now. I'm frustrated over this, but that's not the way to handle it. There's other ways to handle it, which we just talked about tonight. And I tell you, Jerry and Jose had very good points about this. Very good points about this tonight and the way to handle it. Also, guys, bring God back into this country. Look at this country. We are a beacon of light. We are what everybody wanted to be. Back 10, 15, 20 years ago, everybody looked at the United States like it was the ultimate place to be. And now it's becoming a laughing stock of other countries right now because of this stuff going on. And they're talking about it in a lot of other countries. I mean, you've got leaders in other countries right now that are laughing at us and talking about it. And the news is hiding a lot of that. They don't want that to be seen because you've got a lot of corrupt news media out there because they love focusing on the negative, because the negative feeds them more money, and that's all they care about. They don't care about people at all. Guys,
look at the two guys we sent to France last year. You know, I mean, the two guys that dressed like women, and it was to some high-level government, thing, like a global government thing. And it's like, and the one guy turned out to be the guy that was stealing luggage that wound up getting kicked out of his job. And the other one is like the assistant secretary of HHS or whatever, that Rachel Levine.
Yeah.
Wasn't a good looking guy, as a worse looking woman.
Right.
Not even really a woman, to be frank, but it's like, so to go with all the other stuff we've been talking about today, our government is being represented on the world stage by people like that. So are people laughing at us? You bet they are. And frankly, if another government sent people like that to the United States, I would be laughing at them.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure that nobody bullies any of these people out there. So I am going to say that. Don't do that, because a lot of people are irritated right now with what's going on. Look, we could go on this for hours and hours and hours tonight, but I would love to. There's so much we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks here, because I'm going to be back on the air, and I am going to be back on the air talking a lot. Jerry and I and Jose and I and other people want to be back on the show. There's going to be a lot of people talking about many things. So anyway, I just want to say this. I'm going to say it this way. I thank our military for everything you guys do out there. I do thank our law enforcement for everything you guys are going through out there. Unfortunately, your hands are tied with some of this stuff we see out there, because I knew you're standing there looking at this and you can't do anything about this because your own governor or mayor have told you you cannot do anything about this. You know what you do? I mean, I hate to say it, you almost turn around and walk away from them. And pretty much, if I were a law enforcement officer and I had a governor or mayor telling me that, I'd pretty much quit my job and then see how the city runs without any law enforcement. It's pretty much being put there right now with your hands tied. So anyway, also want to thank our first responders for everything you guys are doing out there. We'll talk about COVID and many other things that have come up, which Jerry and I have talked about in the past, and Jose on this show. And everything that they talked about, guess what? It is all proven now. So they were right. And we'll be talking about that as well. All right. Last thing, am I missing anybody? Truck drivers, thanks for everything you guys do. And went over that. So I think that's about it, guys. I do want to say God bless you. God bless America. And guys, at this point, God bless the world and everything that's going on. And God, we got to get back to the basic roots where we started from. And let's get back to basics and family and doing the right things and talking to our children the right way and handling things right. Anything else, guys, before I end this?
Nope, that's it.
I'm good.
All right. God bless you. Go to my website, by the way, and it's just the-markcommonsense.com. Go ahead. You can go in there. You can email me and give me your thought, feedback, and everything else, because we're back on, guys. So, again, God bless you. Have a great night. Take care.